12 years. That's 4,380 days. That is how long I thought I knew the man sitting across from me. Mark was my rock. My high school sweetheart's older brother who stepped in when my world fell apart. He was the man who held my hand through 3 miscarriages before our miracle daughter, Lily, was finally born. He was the man I trusted with my life, my secrets, and my soul. But as I sat there on our 12th wedding anniversary, looking at the expensive steak I'd spent 3 hours preparing, the air in the room felt heavy, cold. Mark wasn't eating. He was staring at me, not with the love he used to have, but with a clinical, detached sort of loathing. "Mark, is everything okay? You haven't touched the Wagyu," I said, my voice trembling slightly. Without a word, Mark reached into his blazer pocket. He pulled out a thick legal-size envelope and tossed it onto the table. It landed right in the middle of the mashed potatoes, a white stain on our perfect dinner. "Open it, Elena," he said. His voice was like dry ice, burning and freezing all at once. I opened it. My heart hammered against my ribs like a trapped bird. Inside were legal forms, a demand for a court-ordered DNA paternity test for our 10-year-old daughter, Lily. Mark said, "What is this? Is this some kind of sick joke?" I felt the blood drained from my face. "The joke is over, Elena," he spat, leaning forward into the candlelight. His eyes, usually a warm hazel, looked like polished stones. "I've seen the way you look at your co-worker, David. I've seen the timeline. Lily doesn't look a thing like me. She has your eyes, sure, but the rest, she's a stranger in my house, and I'm done paying for another man's mistake." "David? David is my boss, Mark. He's 60 years old. How can you even say this?" I was hyperventilating now. "Save the tears for the judge," he muttered, standing up. "My mother was right about you. She always said you were a social climber who found a stable horse to ride. Well, this horse is heading back to the stable. I've already moved my things into the guest house. Don't talk to me unless it's through my lawyer." He walked out, leaving the smell of his expensive cologne and the stench of betrayal hanging in the air. The next 3 days were a blur of public humiliation. Mark didn't just want a test, he wanted a massacre. He posted on Facebook a long rambling status about seeking the truth and betrayal. Our mutual friends stopped calling. At my job, people whispered near the water cooler. My mother-in-law, Evelyn, a woman who defined the term passive-aggressive, called me just to say, "I always knew your bloodline was tainted, dear. Don't expect a dime from the trust." But the worst part was Lily. "Mommy, why is Daddy sleeping in the other house? Why won't he hug me?" she asked, her big brown eyes filled with tears. I had to hold it together. I had to be the wall that protected her. "Daddy is just confused right now, baby. It's going to be okay. We're just going to take a little test to show him the truth." The day of the collection was the most dehumanizing experience of my life. We met at a private clinic in downtown Chicago. Mark was there, dressed in a sharp navy suit, looking like he was attending a board meeting rather than questioning his daughter's existence. He wouldn't even look at Lily. He stood in the corner, scrolling on his phone, while the technician took the buccal swabs. "Does this hurt, Mommy?" Lily whispered. "No, honey. Just a little tickle," I said, glaring at the back of Mark's head. If looks could kill, he would have been ashes on the linoleum floor. The technician, a woman named Sarah with tired eyes, looked between us. She seemed to sense the tension. "Results typically take 5 to 7 business days," she said. "They will be uploaded to the secure portal and mailed to both parties." "Make it fast," Mark said to her, finally looking up. "I have a lifestyle to reclaim." Those 5 days were a descent into hell. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. It wasn't that I doubted the results. I knew I had never been with another man. It was the realization that the man I loved was a monster. He was willing to traumatize his own daughter just to hurt me. Friday, 2:14 p.m. The email arrived. "Results available. Case number 7749B. My hands shook so hard I nearly dropped my laptop. I logged into the portal. My vision blurred. I scrolled past the legal jargon, past the loci and the alleles straight to the bottom. Probability of maternity 99.99%. Elena Vance is the biological mother. Probability of paternity 0.0%. Mark Vance is not the biological father. I went numb. The world tilted on its axis. My heart didn't just break, it disintegrated. How? How was this possible? I had never cheated, not once. Not even a flirtatious text. I remembered the night Lily was conceived. I remembered every moment of my pregnancy. I stared at the screen until my eyes burned. And then I saw it. At the bottom of the report, there was a red flag icon. A small note from the lab director. Note: while the paternity index is 0, the paternal markers provided in the sample for Mark Vance triggered a flag 404 in the National CODIS cross-reference system. Please contact the administrator. I didn't cry. Something else took over. A cold, crystalline clarity. I called the lab. I demanded to speak to the director because I knew one thing for certain. Lily was mine. And if Mark wasn't the father and I hadn't cheated, then something was very, very wrong with Mark. "This is Dr. Eris," a deep voice said over the phone. "Mrs. Vance, I've been expecting your call. The results regarding your husband's DNA are unprecedented for a civil case." "What does it mean, doctor?" "How can he not be the father if I've never been with anyone else?" "Mrs. Vance, I cannot explain the paternity result, but I can tell you why the system flagged him. When we run DNA for these tests, we check against certain databases for genetic anomalies. Your husband's DNA profile is an exact match for a set of records from 15 years ago. A set of records belonging to a man who was declared deceased in a plane crash off the coast of Florida." My breath hitched. Who? Who is the man? His name was Thomas Thorne. But that's not the issue, Mrs. Vance. The issue is that Mark Vance, the man you are married to, doesn't exist in the genetic record, or rather he's using the identity of a man who died over a decade ago. I hung up the phone. My house felt like a stranger's home. I looked at the photos on the mantle. Mark at his graduation, Mark at our wedding. I realized then that I didn't know the man in those photos at all. I waited until Mark went to his guest house, which was actually the renovated garage, to go into the attic. I knew he had a locked trunk there. He told me it was filled with old memorabilia from his brother, the real Mark, who had died of a fever when they were kids in England. I didn't use a key. I used a crowbar. Inside wasn't memorabilia. It was a life in a box. I found 3 different passports, all with his face but different names: Thomas Thorne, Julian Vane, Mark Vance. I found a stack of newspaper clippings from 20 years ago. Thorne family empire in turmoil. Heir apparent Thomas Thorne, presumed dead. And then I found the most damning thing of all, a hidden compartment containing a series of letters. They were addressed to Tommy from Evelyn, my mother-in-law. Tommy, the real Mark, is gone. No one in this godforsaken country knows what he looked like as an adult. If you play this right, the Vance trust is ours. The girl, Elena, is perfect. She's naive. She's alone. She will be your shield. Just make sure you don't actually fall for her. I felt sick. My entire marriage was a long con, a decades-long play to steal a dead boy's inheritance. And now that the trust was about to pay out its final massive lump sum, $25 million, the imposter wanted me out of the picture so he wouldn't have to share it in a divorce. He was using the DNA test to gaslight me, not realizing that his own stolen identity would be his undoing. But I couldn't just go to the police, not yet. Thomas, or whoever he was dangerous. He had erased a man's life. I needed to find the real Thorne family. I drove 6 hours to a small, wealthy enclave in Connecticut. I found the address for the Thorne estate. It was a fortress of gray stone and ivy. I pulled up to the gate and buzzed on Wissey. "Who is it?" a sharp, elderly voice asked. "My name is Elena Vance," I said, my voice steady. "I think I'm married to your nephew. Or at least the man who murdered him." The gates opened. Inside I met Lydia Thorne. She was 80 years old, draped in silk, and had eyes that could cut diamonds. I showed her the DNA report. I showed her the photos of my husband. She began to shake. "Thomas," she whispered, "that miserable, jealous boy, he was the stable hand's son. My brother took him in out of pity. He was Thomas's half-brother, a secret shame. When the plane went down, we thought they both died. We never found the bodies. He's been living as Mark Vance for 12 years, I said. He used me. He used my daughter. He didn't just use you, dear, Lydia said, her voice turning to steel. He's been slowly siphoning the Thorne offshore accounts. He needs a biological heir to trigger the final payout of the Vance estate, which was his mother's side. That's why he married you. But if the girl isn't his... She paused. A look of horror crossed her face. Wait, I said, if he's an imposter and he's not the father, then who is? I've never been with anyone else. Lydia looked at me with pity. Elena, did you ever have a medical procedure during your marriage? Anything at all? I thought back. Just the IVF. We struggled for years. Mark insisted on a specific clinic in Switzerland. He said it was the best in the world. Lydia sighed. He didn't want a child that shared his DNA. If the child had his DNA, a simple test could reveal his true identity if anyone ever got suspicious. He must have used a donor. He lied to you about the paternity from the very beginning to protect his cover, intending to use the child as a legal placeholder for the inheritance. The level of calculation was breathtaking. He had planned this before Lily was even a heartbeat. What do we do? I asked. We don't go to the police, Lydia said, a cruel smile touching her lips. Not yet. We wait for the Vance Trust gala. In 3 days, he expects to be handed $25 million. I think it's time for a family reunion. The night of the gala was glittering and cold. The ballroom was filled with the elite of Chicago. Mark, Thomas, was in his element. He was wearing a $5,000 tuxedo, shaking hands, playing the part of the grieving husband who was being forced to divorce his unfaithful wife. Evelyn was by his side, looking like a queen mother in purple velvet. I walked in late. I was wearing a dress the color of spilled blood. I didn't look like a victim. I looked like an executioner. Mark saw me and his face darkened. He walked over, his voice a low hiss. What are you doing here, Elena? I told you the paperwork is being filed. Get out before I have security drag you out. I just wanted to see you collect your prize, Mark, I said, smiling brightly. Or should I call you Thomas? He froze. For a split second, the mask slipped. His eyes darted around the room. I don't know what you're talking about. You've lost your mind. The stress of the affair has broken you. Oh, I'm very sane, I said. Evelyn stepped up to the podium. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming. Today is a momentous day for the Vance family. As the sole heir to the Vance-Thorne merger, my son Mark will now accept the keys to the foundation. The crowd began to clap. Mark started to walk toward the stage, his chest puffed out. Wait, I shouted. My voice rang out through the hall. The music stopped. The clapping died. Hundreds of heads turned toward me. I have a gift for the foundation, I said, holding up a flash drive. A tribute to my husband's incredible journey. Mark lunged for me, but 2 men stepped in his way, men he didn't recognize. They were Lydia Thorne's private security. Stay back, Thomas, one of them said. The room went silent at the name. I walked to the tech booth and plugged the drive in. The giant screen behind the podium flickered to life. It wasn't a tribute. It was a side-by-side comparison of the DNA results. It showed the flag 4-4. It showed the death certificate of Thomas Thorne. And then a video began to play. It was a recording I'd made 2 nights ago. I had gone to the guest house with a hidden camera, pretending to beg for a reconciliation. On the screen, Thomas's voice boomed through the ballroom. You think I care about that kid, Elena? She's a prop. A genetic placeholder. I picked a donor with your eyes so I wouldn't have to look at myself every day. You were a means to an end. Now sign the papers and take the $500,000 I'm offering, or I'll make sure the world thinks you're a common whore. Evelyn screamed, turn it off! Turn it off now! But it was too late. I switched to the next slide. It was the letter from Evelyn to Tommy, detailing the plan to steal the inheritance. The room erupted. People were standing, shouting. Mark, Thomas, looked like a cornered animal. He looked at the exit, but the doors were already blocked. You bitch! Thomas roared, charging at me. I gave you everything. You were a nobody from a trailer park. I made you a Vance. You didn't make me anything. I said as the police burst through the doors. And you aren't a Vance. You're just a thief who's about to lose his shadow. The officers tackled him to the ground right in front of the podium. His face was pressed into the expensive carpet. Evelyn was being handcuffed as an accessory to identity theft and wire fraud. As they dragged him past me, he looked at me with pure, unadulterated hatred. I'll be out in 5 years, Elena, and I'll come for you. I leaned in close, so only he could hear me. Actually, Thomas, I spoke to Lydia Thorne. She's filing a civil suit for the recovery of all the stolen assets. And the FBI, they're looking into the accident that killed the real Mark. They think you didn't just steal his name. They think you pushed him out of that plane. His face went pale. The bravado vanished. For the first time, I saw him truly afraid. 6 months later, the dust has finally settled. The Vance Trust was frozen and eventually redistributed to the rightful Thorne heirs, including a massive educational fund for Lily, who Lydia Thorne has officially recognized as her honorary niece. I moved us to a small cottage by the sea. No more marble floors, no more Wagyu dinners, just peace. I went to visit Mark one last time before his transfer to a federal penitentiary. He sat behind the glass, looking thin, his hair turning gray. He didn't have his suits or his cologne anymore. He was just a man named Thomas who had spent his life pretending to be someone better. He picked up the phone. "What do you want, Elena, to gloat?" "No," I said. "I just wanted to give you this." I held up a picture. It was Lily at her first soccer game, laughing and covered in mud. She looked happy. She looked free. She's not a placeholder, Thomas. She's a person. And she's already forgotten your name. To her, her father is a ghost who never existed. And soon the world will feel the same way about you. I hung up the phone and walked out into the sunlight. My name is Elena. I am 34 years old, and for the first time in 12 years, I am not living a lie.